I was paying all the bills while she was out cheating, so I took back everything they owned. I never thought my life would turn upside down over a single meeting, but that's exactly what happened when Naomi walked into my gym. Before her, my days were predictable: work, sweat, sleep, repeat. As a personal trainer, I spent my time pushing clients to lift heavier, run faster, and eat cleaner, all while keeping my own world simple and free of chaos. I liked it that way. No drama, no complications, just me and the weights. Then she showed up, asking about switching up her routine, and everything changed. Naomi wasn't loud or flashy, but there was something about her, a quiet strength that made me look twice. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and her eyes had this spark, like she knew exactly who she was. I offered her a trial session, figuring she'd be like any other client, but she wasn't. One session stretched into a week, then a month. She was consistent, showing up every Tuesday and Thursday without fail, and I started looking forward to those days more than I'd admit. We talked between sets, nothing deep at first, just small stuff like her favorite protein shake or how she hated cardio. Over time, those chats grew into something more. I learned she came from a family that stuck together through thick and thin, even if money was always tight. Her mom, Patricia, was the backbone, and her younger sister, Brielle, was the wild card, always dreaming big but never quite landing on her feet. Naomi was the glue, the one they leaned on, and I could tell it weighed on her, though she never complained. She'd laugh it off, saying they were her people, and that was that. I don't know when I started falling for her, but I remember the moment I knew I was in deep. It was after a tough workout. Burpees and deadlifts had her dripping sweat, but she still grinned at me like she'd won a prize. We were wiping down the mats and she caught me off guard with an invite. "Come over for dinner," she said, her voice casual but her eyes locked on mine. "You can meet my mom and try that family recipe I keep talking about, the one with the secret sauce." I froze for a second, caught between wanting to say yes and wondering if I was ready to step into her world. But that smile of hers made it impossible to say no. "Sure," I mumbled, trying to play it cool, even though my heart was pounding harder than it did during a sprint. That dinner changed everything. I showed up at their small, cramped house with a bottle of cheap wine, feeling out of place in my gym shorts and hoodie. Patricia greeted me at the door, all polite smiles and careful words, but I could feel her sizing me up. She was older, maybe in her late 50s, with sharp eyes that didn't miss a thing. Brielle, on the other hand, didn't even try to hide her feelings. She barely looked at me, just gave a quick nod before disappearing to her room. The food was good, some kind of spicy chicken dish that Naomi swore was a family secret, and we laughed over how I couldn't handle the heat. But under the small talk, there was tension I couldn't shake. Patricia asked too many questions: where I worked, how much I made, what my plans were. Brielle popped in just long enough to roll her eyes at my answers. Naomi kept the peace, squeezing my hand under the table, but I could tell she felt it too. Driving home that night, my mind was spinning. I liked Naomi, really liked her, but that dinner wasn't just a meal, it was a preview of what I was signing up for. Her family wasn't just close, they were tangled up in each other, and Naomi was right in the middle. I could see it in the way Patricia leaned on her for reassurance, the way Brielle expected her to fix everything. They weren't just her mom and sister, they were a package deal, and I wasn't sure where I fit in. Part of me wanted to run, to keep my simple life intact, but another part couldn't stop thinking about Naomi's laugh, the way she looked at me like I mattered. As I pulled into my driveway, I gripped the steering wheel tight, staring at the dark street ahead. I wasn't just dating her, I realized. I was stepping into their expectations, their struggles, their mess, and I had no idea what that would mean for me. But here's the thing, I didn't turn back. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. Naomi had this pull, this way of making me feel like I could handle anything, even her family. So I kept going, kept showing up, kept letting her in. That night, tossing and turning in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just crossed a line I didn't fully understand. Patricia's cautious stare, Brielle's cold shoulder, Naomi's warm hand in mine, it all swirled in my head. I told myself it was just dinner, just a first step, but deep down, I knew better. My simple life was gone. This was the start of something bigger, something I couldn't control, and I was already too caught up to walk away. What had I gotten myself into? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. I've never been the kind of guy who waits around when I know what I want, and with Naomi, I knew pretty fast. She wasn't just another client or some passing crush. She was different, real, the kind of woman who made me think about more than just my next workout. My life before her was all about keeping things easy, work hard at the gym, help people hit their goals, then crash at home with a protein shake and a quiet night. But after that dinner at her mom's place, I couldn't get her out of my head. Her quiet confidence, her quick laugh, the way she cared so much about her family, it all stuck with me. I didn't waste time wondering if I should make a move. I just did it. One night after a session, we were walking to our cars in the parking lot, the air cool and the sky dark. My heart was thumping, but I kept my voice steady. "I'm not good at fancy speeches," I said, kicking at a pebble on the ground, "but I like you a lot. What do you say? Want to make this official?" I looked up, half expecting her to laugh or brush me off, but she didn't. She just smiled, that soft, sure smile I was starting to need like air, and said, "Let's see where this goes." That was all I needed to hear. From there, things moved fast, faster than I'd ever thought they could. We went from gym chats to dates, from dates to late-night talks on my couch, sharing stories about our lives. She told me more about her family, how her mom, Patricia, had raised her and Brielle alone after their dad left, how money was always tight, but they made it work. I told her about my boring, steady world, growing up with parents who didn't fight much, working my way through college, landing the trainer gig. We fit together, or at least, I thought we did. Within a year, I was down on one knee in her mom's living room, a cheap ring in my hand, asking her to marry me. She said yes, tears in her eyes, and I felt like the luckiest guy alive. I had this picture in my head, starting fresh, getting our own place, building something new together. A little apartment, maybe, with space for just the two of us. But Naomi had other ideas, and that's where everything started to shift. She hit me with it a week after the engagement, while we were eating takeout at my place. "I think we should live with Mom and Brielle," she said, picking at her fried rice like it was no big deal. I stopped chewing, my fork halfway to my mouth, and stared at her. "What?" I asked, hoping I'd heard wrong. She looked up, her face calm but firm. "It's temporary," she said. "Mom needs help with the bills, and Brielle's still figuring things out. It'd be easier if we were there, you know." I didn't know. I didn't get it at all. I wanted us to have our own life, not move into her mom's cramped house with her sister glaring at me every chance she got. But Naomi kept talking. Her voice soft but steady, like she'd already made up her mind. "They're my family," she said. "I can't just leave them hanging." I sat there, trying to find the right words, but all I could think was how much I hated this idea. Still, I loved her. I wanted her happy, so I swallowed my doubts and nodded. "Okay," I said, forcing a smile. "Temporary, right?" She grinned and kissed me, and I told myself it'd be fine. That was my first big mistake. The wedding came quick. A small thing at the courthouse, just us, Patricia, Brielle, and a couple of my gym buddies. Naomi looked beautiful in a simple white dress, and I couldn't stop grinning, even with Patricia's tight-lipped smile and Brielle's eye rolls in the background. I thought marriage would be the start of something good, something ours. But the day we moved into Patricia's house, I felt the weight of it settle on me. My stuff, my weights, my clothes, my old couch, barely fit in the tiny spare room Naomi and I shared. Patricia greeted us at the door, her voice all fake cheer. "Welcome home," she said, but it didn't feel like home to me. It felt like I was a guest who'd overstayed already. Brielle didn't even bother coming out of her room that first day. She just blasted music loud enough to make the walls shake. I unpacked my boxes, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my gut, telling myself this was for Naomi, for us. That first night, lying in bed with Naomi, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the creak of the old house and the muffled sound of Brielle's TV through the wall. Naomi curled up next to me, her head on my chest, and whispered, "Thanks for doing this. It means a lot." I kissed the top of her head, but I couldn't shake the thought that I'd just signed up for more than I'd bargained for. I wanted to marry Naomi, to build a life with her, but now I was in deep with her family too. Patricia's careful questions from that first dinner echoed in my head. How much I made, what my plans were. Brielle's cold stares flashed behind my eyes. This wasn't just our marriage, it was me stepping into their world, their rules. I told myself I could handle it, that love was worth it, but as I drifted off, the doubt crept in. How temporary was temporary? And what had I really said yes to? I didn't know yet, but I was starting to feel like I'd find out the hard way. Moving into Patricia's house didn't feel like a fresh start. It felt like walking into a trap I couldn't see yet. I'd pictured marriage as me and Naomi building something together, just the two of us, but instead, I was squeezing my life into a cramped room in a house that wasn't mine. The first few days were a blur of unpacking and trying to find space for my stuff. My dumbbells got shoved under the bed, my clothes were stuffed into a tiny closet next to Naomi's. I told myself I could make it work, that this was temporary like she'd promised. But the moment I stepped out of our room and into the rest of the house, I knew I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was an outsider in enemy territory. Patricia and Brielle didn't say it outright, but I could feel it in the air, thick and heavy like the humidity before a storm. They didn't want me there, not really. And they made sure I knew it without ever having to speak the words. My days were still long. I'd leave early for the gym, training clients from sunrise to dusk, pushing them through squats and lunges, while I tried to keep my own head straight. I loved my job, the way I could see people change, get stronger, feel better about themselves. It was my escape, my steady ground. But when I came back to that house, everything shifted. I'd walk through the door, sweaty and tired, and there'd be this unspoken expectation waiting for me. Patricia would glance up from the couch, her voice all sugar and ice, saying something like, "Oh, you're home. The sink's leaking again. Think you could take a look?" I'm no plumber, but I'd grab a wrench and get under there anyway, water dripping on my face while she watched TV. Then there were the chores. Dishes piled up that Brielle swore she'd do but never did. Trash overflowing because no one else bothered to take it out. I'd grit my teeth and handle it, telling myself I was helping Naomi, keeping the peace. But it wasn't just the chores. It was the money, too. I'd been saving up for years, keeping my own life simple so I could put cash aside for something big, maybe a house of our own one day. That dream started slipping away fast. Patricia had this way of dropping hints that weren't hints at all. "The electric bill's due tomorrow," she'd say, sighing like the world was on her shoulders. "Things are so tight right now." I'd pull out my wallet, write a check, and hand it over, feeling the numbers in my bank account shrink. Brielle was worse. She didn't ask, she demanded. "The Wi-Fi's out," she'd snap, glaring at me like it was my fault. "You going to fix that or what?" So I'd pay for that too, and the groceries, and the busted water heater. I was funding their whole life, and I hadn't even been there a month. Naomi saw it happening, but she'd just shrug. "They're not used to having a man around," she'd say, her voice soft. "They'll warm up to you." They didn't warm up. If anything, it got colder. Patricia's comments started cutting deeper, always wrapped in that fake sweet tone. "A real man knows how to take care of his family," she'd say over dinner, her eyes flicking to me while I shoveled food into my mouth. I'd cooked that meal, spaghetti and meatballs, nothing fancy, but Brielle still pushed it around her plate like it was garbage. "This tastes weird," she'd mutter, loud enough for me to hear. Every effort I made got shot down. I fixed the back door that wouldn't lock, and Brielle smirked. "Took you long enough." I mowed the overgrown yard, and Patricia said, "Hope you didn't ruin my grass." I wasn't just living there, I was fighting a silent battle every day, one I didn't even want to be in. My hands would clench under the table, but I'd keep my mouth shut. For Naomi, always for Naomi. She saw it all, though she pretended not to. We'd lie in bed at night, the house quiet except for the hum of Brielle's TV through the wall, and I'd try to talk to her. "Your mom and sister, they don't like me," I'd say, staring at the ceiling. She'd roll over, her hand resting on my chest, and sigh. "They just need time," she'd whisper. "They're protective, that's all. Give it a chance." I wanted to believe her, wanted to think it'd get better, but the days dragged on, and nothing changed. Patricia's snarky remarks kept coming. Brielle's attitude got sharper, and I kept pouring my energy and my money into a house that didn't feel like mine. I'd wake up early, tiptoe past their rooms, and head to the gym just to breathe again. Out there, I was in control. In here, I was a stranger they tolerated because I paid the bills. One night, after fixing the garbage disposal for the third time that week, I sat on the edge of our bed, my hands still greasy, my back aching. Naomi was brushing her hair, humming some song, and I just watched her. She was why I was here, why I kept going. I loved her, her strength, her heart, the way she made me feel like I could be more than just a guy with a clipboard and a whistle. But as I looked at her, I couldn't shake the thought creeping in. This wasn't temporary. This was my life now, stuck in a house where I wasn't wanted, playing a game I couldn't win. I rubbed my face, trying to push it down, but it stayed there, heavy and real. "You okay?" Naomi asked, catching my eye in the mirror. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just tired." She nodded and went back to her humming, but I lay there awake, wondering how long I could keep this up. The battle had begun, and I was already losing. Living with Patricia and Brielle was like trying to hold water in my hands. It kept slipping away, no matter how hard I tried to grip it. I thought I'd signed up for a marriage with Naomi, a partnership, a team. But what I got was a life where I was the guy who paid for everything, fixed everything, and still got treated like I didn't belong. My days at the gym were my lifeline, training clients, counting reps, feeling the burn of a good lift. Out there, I was in charge, respected, useful. But the second I walked through that front door, I turned into something else. Their personal ATM, their handyman, their punching bag. It didn't start big, it was little things at first, stuff I could brush off. Patricia would sigh and say, "The light bill's higher this month. Things are so tight." I'd nod, pull out my card and cover it, thinking I was helping Naomi's family, doing the right thing. Then Brielle's car needed gas, or the fridge was empty, and I'd step up again. I told myself it was temporary, like Naomi kept saying, but temporary turned into months, and the requests never stopped. Then the bigger asks came, and that's when I started feeling the squeeze. Patricia's car broke down one day, some old clunker she refused to replace, and she looked at me over breakfast, her voice all casual. It's going to cost a couple hundred to fix. Do you think you could—" She didn't finish, just let it hang there, but I knew what she meant. I paid it, of course, because Naomi was sitting right there, her eyes soft and hopeful, and I didn't want to let her down. A week later, Brielle came home with some half-baked idea about starting a jewelry business. "I just need a little cash to get it going," she said, not even looking at me, like I owed her. Against my better judgment, I handed over $1,000, watching it disappear into a pile of beads and wire that never turned into anything. When the business flopped in less than 2 months, she didn't even say sorry, just shrugged and moved on. I was hemorrhaging money, pouring it into their lives, and for what? Patricia still acted like I was a freeloader, and Brielle wouldn't give me the time of day. Naomi wasn't the problem, at least not directly. She wasn't reckless with cash or lazy like her sister. She worked hard, picked up shifts at a coffee shop when she wasn't at the gym with me. But every dime she made went straight to them. "They raised me," she'd say whenever I brought it up, her voice firm but quiet. "Mom sacrificed everything, and Brielle's still finding her way. It's my turn to take care of them." I got it, I really did. Family mattered to her, and I loved that about her. But it didn't stop with her. Because she cared, I cared, and that meant my paycheck wasn't mine anymore. It went to their rent when Patricia fell behind, to Patricia's credit card debt when she forgot to pay it, to Brielle's latest disaster. I'd sit at the kitchen table some nights, staring at my bank account on my phone, watching the numbers drop lower and lower. I'd built that savings over years, late nights, extra clients, skipping vacations, and now it was vanishing, all because I wanted to make Naomi happy. I kept going, though. I loved her too much to stop. She'd smile at me across the room or slip her hand into mine when we watched TV, and I'd remember why I was doing this. She was worth it. Her heart, her laugh, the way she made me feel like I could take on anything. But the price was steep, and it wasn't just money. It was the way Patricia looked at me, like I was never enough, or how Brielle sneered when I walked by. I was the outsider, the guy they tolerated because he kept the lights on. I'd lie awake at night, Naomi asleep beside me, and wonder how long I could keep this up. My dreams, our dreams, of a place of our own, a life that wasn't tangled up in her family's mess, felt further away every day. But then something happened that I thought would change it all. Naomi got pregnant. It was a Tuesday when she told me. I'd just gotten home from the gym, my shirt still damp with sweat, and she was waiting in the kitchen, her hands twisting together. "I'm late," she said, her voice shaky but her eyes bright. I stared at her, not getting it at first, until she held up the test, 2 pink lines staring back at me. My heart stopped, then started racing. "A baby?" I asked, and she nodded, a smile breaking through. I grabbed her, pulled her into my arms and laughed, loud, real, the kind of laugh I hadn't let out in months. A kid. Our kid. I thought this was it, the turning point. Patricia and Brielle would have to see me differently now. I wasn't just the guy paying their bills. I was the father of their grandson or granddaughter. We'd be a family, a real one, and maybe they'd ease up. Maybe we'd finally move out, start fresh. I held Naomi tight, kissing her forehead, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. "This changes everything," I said, believing it with every piece of me. But as the days turned into weeks, that hope started to flicker. Patricia didn't soften, she just started asking for more, talking about cribs and diapers like it was my job to buy them all. Brielle didn't care, she just complained about how loud a baby would be. Naomi glowed, her belly growing, but she still defended them every time I complained. "They'll come around," she'd say, and I'd nod, wanting to believe her. I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts, saving what I could for the baby. I thought fatherhood would shift the game, make me more than just the wallet they reached into. I was wrong, but I didn't see it yet. Lying in bed, my hand on Naomi's stomach, feeling the tiny kicks, I told myself it'd be worth it. The price of love was high, but I'd pay it. For her, for us, for the little life we'd made. I just didn't know how much higher it would get. When Lucas came into the world, I thought it'd be the moment everything clicked into place. Naomi had been in labor for hours, her face tight with pain but her grip on my hand strong as iron. I stayed by her side, wiping her forehead, whispering that she could do this, feeling useless but trying anyway. Then he was here, our son, a tiny wrinkled thing with a cry that hit me right in the chest. I held him first, his little body warm against me, and I looked at Naomi, tears in her eyes, and thought, this is it. This is our family. I named him Lucas after my granddad, a quiet man who'd always been steady, and I swore I'd be that for him too. In that hospital room, with Naomi smiling through her exhaustion and Lucas sleeping in my arms, I felt like we'd finally built something solid, something Patricia and Brielle couldn't touch. I was wrong, dead wrong, but I didn't know it yet. We brought Lucas home to Patricia's house a few days later, his car seat bumping against my leg as I carried him inside. I'd spent weeks getting ready, putting together a crib in our cramped room, stacking diapers in the corner, even painting a little blue star on the wall above his bed. I thought Patricia and Brielle would see him and soften, that a grandson would make them see me as more than just the guy who paid the bills. But the second we walked in, I knew nothing had changed. Patricia peeked at Lucas, gave a tight smile and said, "He's small, isn't he? Hope he doesn't cost too much." Brielle barely looked up from her phone, muttering, "Great, now it's going to be loud all the time." My stomach sank, but I brushed it off, focusing on Lucas's tiny fingers curling around mine. Naomi laughed, said they were just tired, and I nodded, wanting to believe her. I should have known better. The days turned into weeks, and instead of bringing us closer, Lucas just made the lines deeper. I was still working long hours at the gym, longer now, with a kid to feed, and when I got home, I'd take over. I'd change diapers, rock him to sleep, warm bottles while Naomi rested. I loved it, even when I was dead tired, because he was mine. But Patricia and Brielle didn't see it that way. To them, I was Lucas's nanny, not his dad. Patricia started leaving me lists: buy formula, fix the leaky faucet, pick up groceries like I was hired help. Brielle would dump his dirty clothes on me, saying, "You're home, you deal with it." I'd bite my tongue, scoop Lucas up and handle it because I didn't want to fight in front of him. But it wore me down, the way they acted like I was nothing more than a tool they could use. It got worse at family gatherings. Patricia loved showing Lucas off to her friends, holding him up like a trophy, but she'd turn it on me every chance she got. "Oh, his dad makes a decent living," she'd say, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear, but it's not like he's rolling in it. They'd laugh, and I'd stand there, my face burning, pretending I didn't care. Brielle was sharper, cutting me where it hurt. "You're never around," she'd say, smirking, even though I was working overtime to keep food on the table for all of them. "What kind of dad are you?" I'd clench my fists under the table, my jaw tight, but I wouldn't snap back. Not with Lucas there, watching me with those big, curious eyes. I'd scoop him up, take him outside, and breathe, telling myself I could handle it for him, for Naomi. Naomi saw it all, but she wouldn't call them out. We'd be in bed, Lucas asleep between us, and I'd try to talk. "Your mom and sister, they treat me like crap," I'd say, keeping my voice low. She'd sigh, roll over, and put her hand on my arm. "They don't mean it that way," she'd whisper. "They're just stressed. Just ignore it." Ignore it? How do you ignore your mother-in-law laughing at your paycheck in front of strangers? How do you ignore your sister-in-law acting like you're a deadbeat when you're breaking your back to keep them afloat? But I'd look at Naomi, her face soft in the dark, and I'd let it go. She was still my wife, still the woman I'd fallen for, and I didn't want to push her away. So I ignored it. For months, then years, swallowing the anger, the frustration, the feeling that I was losing myself in this house. Lucas grew fast, crawling, then walking, then babbling words that made me grin like an idiot. He was my light, the reason I kept going. I'd come home exhausted, and he'd toddle over, arms up, calling Indata in that high little voice. I'd lift him, spin him around, and for a minute the weight of Patricia and Brielle would lift. But it always came back. The bills kept piling up, diapers, doctor visits, toys, and I paid them all. Patricia's emergencies never stopped, and Brielle's laziness got worse. I was still the outsider, the guy they leaned on but never thanked. One night after a 12-hour shift, I sat on the couch with Lucas asleep on my chest, his little breaths warm against me. Patricia walked by, glanced at us, and said, "Hope you're saving up. He's only going to get more expensive." I didn't answer, just stared at the TV, my throat tight. Naomi came in, kissed my forehead, and said, "You're a good dad." I wanted to believe her, but I didn't feel good. I felt trapped. Years passed like that, a slow grind of work and resentment. Lucas was 3 now, a ball of energy with Naomi's eyes and my stubborn streak. I loved him more than anything, but this family, this house, wasn't mine. It belonged to Patricia and Brielle, and I was just the guy keeping it running. I'd look at Naomi, still defending them, still asking me to be patient, and I'd wonder how much longer I could take it. I'd given them everything, my money, my time, my pride, and gotten nothing back. Sitting there with Lucas, his head on my shoulder, I realized something. I wasn't his dad here, not really. I was their servant, and I didn't know how much more I could give. By the time Lucas was 4, I was stretched so thin I barely recognized myself. The gym was still my world, training clients, pushing them past their limits, feeling that rush when they hit a new personal best. But I'd taken it further, started something bigger. I'd launched an online fitness business, YouTube videos, Instagram posts, workout plans I sold to people all over the country. It wasn't just a side hustle anymore, it was blowing up. My channel had thousands of subscribers, my posts got likes and shares I couldn't keep up with, and the money started rolling in, real money, more than I'd ever made at the gym alone. I'd sit at my desk late at night, Lucas asleep down the hall, and watch the numbers climb. It felt good, like I was finally building something for me, for us. I thought it'd be my way out, a chance to get Naomi and Lucas into our own place away from Patricia and Brielle's constant drain. But that dream didn't last long. Every dollar I made seemed to vanish into their hands before I could even touch it. It was the same old story, just with higher stakes. I'd come home with a paycheck, proud of what I'd earned, and Patricia would be there, her voice all soft and pitiful. "The heating bill's late again," she'd say, or, "The roof's leaking. Can't afford to let it get worse." Brielle was bolder, always with some new disaster. My phone broke, she'd whine, holding up a cracked screen like it was my fault, and I need it for work. Work? She hadn't held a job in months, but I'd still hand over the cash, watching my savings shrink again. I paid for everything: the house, the groceries, Lucas's preschool, Patricia's emergencies, Brielle's endless flops. My online business was thriving, but I wasn't. Every cent went to them, and I was too tired to fight it. Naomi would see me stressing, rub my shoulders and say, "We'll move out soon, I promise." But soon never came, and I stopped believing her. Then came the big one, the request that broke me. It was a Saturday, Lucas playing with his trucks on the living room floor while I scrolled through my phone, checking comments on my latest video. Patricia walked in, sat across from me, and folded her hands like she was about to deliver a speech. "The house is falling apart," she said, her tone serious. "The pipes are old, the floors are buckling. We need renovations. 75,000, that's what the guy quoted. I froze, my thumb hovering over the screen. 75,000? I'd just started rebuilding my savings, scraping together what I could after years of their demands. I looked at her, waiting for the punchline, but she just stared back, expectant. Brielle chimed in from the couch, not even looking up from her magazine. "Yeah, it's a dump. You want us to live like this?" My chest tightened, a slow burn creeping up my neck. I'd paid their rent, fixed their cars, funded their lives, and now this? I set my phone down, my hand shaking, and said the word I'd never said before: no. The room went still. Lucas kept pushing his truck, oblivious, but Patricia's face hardened. "What do you mean, no?" she asked, her voice sharp. Brielle sat up, tossing the magazine aside. "You serious?" she snapped. I took a breath, feeling the weight of years pressing down, and stood my ground. "I'm not paying for it," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've given you enough." Patricia's eyes narrowed and she leaned forward. "Enough? You've been living here rent-free, eating our food, using our heat. Rent-free? I'd paid every bill for years." I laughed, a short bitter sound, and shook my head. "I've funded this place since I moved in," I said. "You don't get to pretend I haven't." Brielle jumped up, her face red. "You're so selfish. We're family, and you're just going to let us rot in this hole?" I wanted to yell back, to list every dollar I'd poured into them, but Lucas looked up, his big eyes on me, and I stopped. "I'm done," I said, quieter now. "Figure it out yourselves." Patricia stood up, hands on her hips, voice rising. "You think you can just walk away from this after all we've done for you, done for me?" I almost laughed again, but the anger was too thick. Brielle started shouting too, calling me ungrateful, lazy, a deadbeat, words that didn't even make sense after everything I'd given. Naomi came in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, her face pale. "What's going on?" she asked, looking between us. I turned to her, hoping she'd back me up, just this once. "Your mom wants 75 grand for renovations," I said. "I told her no," Patricia cut in. "He's abandoning us, Naomi, after all we've been through." Naomi's eyes flicked to me, then to her mom, and I saw it, the hesitation. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "Maybe we can work something out," she said, reaching for my arm. "Work something out?" I pulled away, my heart sinking. Even now she couldn't take my side. The fight went on, Patricia yelling, Brielle cursing, Naomi trying to calm everyone down, but I was done listening. I picked up Lucas, his truck still in his hand, and walked to our room. I shut the door, sat on the bed, and held him close, his little head against my chest. "Dad, you mad?" he asked, his voice small. I forced a smile, kissed his hair. "No, buddy, just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was broken. Years of giving, working, sacrificing, and they still saw me as the bad guy. Naomi came in later, sat beside me, and tried to talk. "They're upset," she said. "They didn't mean it." I looked at her, the woman I loved, and saw the truth. She was scared to stand with me, scared to break away. "I meant it," I said. "I'm not doing this anymore." She didn't answer, just looked away, and I knew this was my breaking point. I couldn't keep living like this. Not for her, not for anyone. Something had to give, and it wasn't going to be me anymore. A week after I said no to Patricia's renovation demand, I came home from the gym with Lucas skipping beside me, his little voice chattering about the dinosaur he'd drawn in preschool. My muscles ached from a long day, but his grin kept me going. He was the one good thing in this mess, the one piece I wouldn't trade. We turned the corner to the house, his hand in mine, and I stopped cold. There, on the patchy front lawn, were our bags. My gym duffel, Lucas's backpack, a couple of trash bags stuffed with clothes. My stomach dropped like I'd been punched. Lucas tugged at my hand, confused. "Why's our stuff outside, Dada?" he asked, his big eyes searching mine. I didn't have an answer, not yet. I just stood there, staring at the pile, my mind racing. Was this a mistake? A break-in? But deep down, I knew it wasn't an accident. This was them, Patricia and Brielle, drawing a line I couldn't cross. I set Lucas down on the grass, told him to stay put, and walked up to the door. My fist hit the wood hard, 3 sharp knocks, but no one answered. The house was quiet, the curtains still, like no one was home. I knocked again, louder, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Patricia! Naomi!" I called, but nothing, just silence. I grabbed my phone, dialed Naomi, my fingers shaking as it rang straight to voicemail. Her voice, soft and familiar, told me to leave a message, but I didn't. I hung up, my throat tight. What was this? Where was she? I turned back to Lucas, who was poking at his backpack, and forced my voice to stay calm. "Hang on, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "We'll figure this out." But inside, I was spinning. Anger, confusion, fear, all mixing together until I couldn't tell them apart. Then the door cracked open, just an inch, and Patricia's face appeared. Her eyes were cold, her mouth a thin line. "You need to find somewhere else to stay," she said, her voice flat like she was telling me the weather. I blinked, the words not sinking in at first. "What are you talking about?" I asked, stepping closer. "This is my home. My wife's here. My son lives here." She didn't flinch, just stared at me through that narrow gap. "Not anymore," she said. "You made your choice when you said no. We don't need you here." My chest tightened, and I pushed against the door, but she held it firm. "Where's Naomi?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Let me talk to her." Patricia shook her head. "She's not here. Take your stuff and go." The door slammed shut, the lock clicking loud in the quiet afternoon, and I stood there, stunned, my hands still raised. Lucas grabbed my leg, his voice small. "Where's Mommy?" he asked, and I looked down at him, his little face scrunched with worry. My heart broke right there, splintering into pieces I didn't know how to pick up. "She's busy," I said, crouching to his level, forcing a smile. "We're going to have an adventure, just you and me, okay?" He nodded, unsure, and I scooped him up, grabbing our bags with my free hand. My mind was a mess. Where was Naomi? Why wasn't she answering? Had she agreed to this? I couldn't think straight, but I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving Lucas out here, scared and confused. I threw the bags in my truck, strapped him into his car seat, and drove off, my knuckles white on the wheel. I didn't know where we were going, my buddy Mike's place maybe, or a cheap motel, but I had to get us out of there. We ended up at Mike's, a cramped apartment a few miles away. He was a trainer too, a guy I'd known since college, and he didn't ask too many questions when I showed up with Lucas and a pile of bags. "And crash as long as you need," he said, tossing me a spare key. I got Lucas settled on the couch with a blanket and some cartoons, but I couldn't sit still. My phone stayed silent, no calls, no texts, nothing from Naomi. I paced the tiny living room, replaying Patricia's words, the locked door, the bags on the lawn. This wasn't just about the money, it was personal. They'd kicked me out, taken my home, my family, and Naomi hadn't stopped them. Or worse, she'd helped. The thought twisted in my gut, sharp and sick, but I pushed it down. I didn't have proof, not yet. I just had Lucas, watching me with those trusting eyes, and I had to keep it together for him. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat on the floor next to the couch, my back against the wall, staring at my phone. I tried Naomi again, voicemail. I scrolled through our texts, the last one from her that morning. "Love you. See you tonight." Love you? Then this. It didn't add up. I rubbed my face, exhaustion pulling at me, but sleep wouldn't come. I kept seeing her face, her smile, the way she'd promised we'd move out someday. Had it all been a lie? Or was she stuck too, scared to fight her mom and sister? I didn't know, and not knowing was killing me. Lucas stirred, mumbling in his sleep, and I reached up, resting my hand on his back. He was all I had left, my boy, my reason. Whatever Naomi was doing, wherever she was, I'd figure it out. But right then, it was just us. I leaned my head back, closing my eyes, and let the anger settle. Patricia thought she'd won, tossing us out like trash. Brielle probably laughed about it. Naomi, God, I didn't know what to think about her. But I wasn't done. I'd built a life once, and I could do it again. For me, for Lucas. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning, even if it hurt like hell. I'd find a place, keep my business going, make sure my son had everything he needed. And Naomi? I'd deal with her when she showed her face because she couldn't hide forever, and neither could the truth. I just had to hold on until it came out. The next day at Mike's place, I was still reeling from the eviction, my head a mess of questions I couldn't answer. Lucas was up early, sitting on the floor with a bowl of cereal, watching some loud cartoon while I tried to figure out our next move. My phone sat on the counter, silent. No calls, no texts, nothing from Naomi. I'd checked it a dozen times, hoping for something, anything, but it stayed blank. Mike was at the gym giving me space, and I was grateful for that. I didn't want to explain the chaos in my head to anyone yet. I kept replaying the day before, Patricia's cold voice, the bags on the lawn, Lucas asking for his mom. It didn't make sense. Naomi wouldn't just let this happen, would she? I wanted to believe she was stuck, pressured by her mom and sister, but doubt was creeping in, heavy and dark. Then my phone buzzed, and everything flipped upside down. It wasn't Naomi, it was Brielle. A text, short and sharp, thought you might want to see what Naomi's been up to. Enjoy. Attached was a link. My stomach twisted, a sick feeling I couldn't shake, but I clicked it anyway. Photos loaded, grainy at first, then clear. Naomi, my wife, laughing at some bar, a drink in her hand, her arm around a guy I didn't know. Another shot, her leaning close to him, her head on his shoulder. A third, his hand on her waist, her smiling like I'd never seen her smile with me lately. My breath caught, my chest tightening until I couldn't move. I scrolled, each picture worse than the last. Dates, nights out, moments she'd never told me about. The timestamps went back months while I was working late, paying their bills, raising our son. I sat there staring at the screen, the cartoon noise fading into a dull hum. She'd been living a double life, and I'd been too blind to see it. The phone rang then, Naomi's name flashing across the screen. My hand shook as I picked it up, my thumb hovering over the button. I wanted to ignore it, to throw the damn thing across the room, but I needed answers. I hit accept, put it to my ear, and didn't say a word. "Hey," she started, her voice shaky. "It's me." I stayed quiet, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "Look, I know you're mad," she said, rushing now. "It's not what it looks like, I swear. I can explain." That's when I snapped. I hung up, cutting her off mid-sentence, and dropped the phone like it burned. Explain? What was there to explain? The pictures didn't lie. Brielle might be a snake, but she'd handed me the truth on a platter. Naomi had been cheating, sneaking around while I was breaking my back for her family. The room spun, and I gripped the counter, trying to breathe. Lucas looked up, milk dripping from his spoon. "Dad, you okay?" he asked, his voice small. I forced a nod, a weak smile. "Yeah, buddy, finish your breakfast." I couldn't sit still after that. I paced Mike's tiny kitchen, the photos burned into my brain, Naomi's laugh, that guy's smug face, the way she looked so free, so happy without me. How long had it been going on? How many nights had she lied, saying she was with friends or helping her mom when she was really with him? I thought back. Her late shifts that didn't add up, her phone always face down, the way she dodged my questions with a smile. It had been right in front of me, and I'd missed it, too busy playing the good husband, the good dad, the good sucker. Anger boiled up, hot and raw, but under it was something worse. Hurt, deep and sharp, cutting me open. I'd loved her, trusted her, given her everything, and she'd thrown it away. For what, some guy in a bar? I didn't even know who he was, but I hated him. Hated her too in that moment. I grabbed my phone again, opened the pictures and stared harder, looking for clues. The bar looked familiar, some dive a few miles from the house, one she'd mentioned once or twice. The dates lined up with nights I'd been home with Lucas, nights Patricia had been sick and needed Naomi to run errands. I laughed, a bitter sound that made Lucas glance over. It was all a setup. Patricia covering for her, Brielle probably in on it too, until she decided to stab her sister in the back. Why? To hurt me more? To twist the knife? I didn't care anymore. The why didn't matter, the what did. My wife was a stranger, and my marriage was a lie. I sat down, my legs weak, and watched Lucas play, his little trucks crashing into each other. He was all that kept me grounded, the only thing real in this nightmare. I tried to focus, figure out what came next. Divorce, sure, but how? We were still tangled up, joint accounts, Lucas, the house I'd paid for but didn't own. I needed a plan, but my head wouldn't clear. The phone buzzed again, Naomi calling back. I let it ring, watching it vibrate on the counter until it stopped. She'd call again or show up, and I'd have to face her eventually, but not now, not with Lucas here, not while I was still reeling. I picked him up, his sticky hands grabbing my shirt, and held him tight. "We're okay," I said, more to myself than him. "Just you and me." He giggled, oblivious, and I clung to that sound, letting it pull me back from the edge. That night, after he was asleep, I sat alone, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I opened the photos again, torturing myself, memorizing every detail. This was my proof, my way out. Naomi could lie all she wanted, but I had the truth now, and I wasn't letting it go. I'd given her family everything, my money, my time, my trust, and they'd taken it all, left me with nothing but a broken heart and a kid to raise. But I wasn't nothing. I had Lucas, my business, a life I could rebuild. Naomi's call came again, and I silenced it, my resolve hardening. She'd had her chance. Now it was mine. The morning after Brielle's text, I woke up on Mike's couch with a fire in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Lucas was still asleep, curled up under a blanket, his little snores filling the quiet. I'd barely slept, the photos of Naomi and that guy looping in my head all night, but I wasn't tired. I was done. Done being the fool, done letting her family walk all over me. I had proof now, hard evidence of her affair, and I wasn't going to let it sit. I called a lawyer I'd found online, a guy who handled divorces fast and cheap, and set up a meeting for that afternoon. By noon I had papers drawn up, divorce papers, custody papers, everything I needed to cut Naomi out and keep Lucas with me. I wasn't waiting for her to explain or beg. I was taking control. With the ink still fresh, I grabbed the folder, kissed Lucas's forehead while he played with Mike, and headed to Patricia's house. This was my reckoning. I pulled up to the familiar cracked driveway, the house looking shabbier than ever, peeling paint, overgrown weeds, a testament to all the money I'd sunk into it. My truck's engine ticked as I shut it off, and I sat there for a second, gripping the papers, steadying myself. I wasn't nervous, just ready. I stepped out, walked up the steps, and banged on the door, louder than I had the day before. This time, it opened fast. Patricia stood there, her arms crossed, her face sour, like she'd been expecting me. Behind her, I saw Brielle lounging on the couch, smirking, and Naomi standing by the kitchen doorway, her eyes wide and red. She looked like she'd been crying, but I didn't care. Not anymore. I held up the folder, my voice steady. "We're done," I said, looking straight at her. "Sign these, and we're over." Patricia laughed, a sharp, ugly sound that grated on me. "Well, if Naomi divorces you, I guess you'll owe her alimony," she said, her tone smug, like she'd already won. I smiled, slow and cold, and opened the folder, pulling out the photos Brielle had sent. I held them up, one by one, Naomi with that guy, laughing, touching, cheating. "No, I won't," I said, my eyes locked on Patricia. "Brielle already gave me proof of her affair. No alimony, no nothing. She gets shit." Patricia's face dropped, the smugness gone in an instant, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Brielle shrank back on the couch, her smirk wiped clean, suddenly small and quiet. I turned to Naomi, who hadn't moved, her hands twisting together. "You've got nothing to say?" I asked, my voice low but hard. She shook her head, tears spilling now, but I didn't soften. I'd spent years softening for her, and it had gotten me here. Then I dropped the real bomb. "And I want back everything I paid for," I said, stepping inside, my boots loud on the creaky floor. Patricia sputtered. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer, just pulled out my phone and dialed the movers I'd called that morning. "Yeah, it's me," I said into the receiver. "Come now." Within 20 minutes, a truck rolled up, 2 guys hopping out with dollies and boxes. I pointed them inside, my voice calm but firm. "Take the furniture, the couch, the table, the chairs, the appliances, fridge, stove, washer, dryer, all of it." Patricia's eyes bulged. "You can't do that," she shouted, grabbing my arm. I shook her off, looking down at her. "I paid for it," I said. "Every dime. Check the receipts. I kept them all." She froze, her face paling because she knew I wasn't bluffing. I'd saved every slip, every record, just in case. Years of paranoia had paid off. The movers got to work, hauling out the couch first, Brielle scrambling off it, yelling, "This is crazy!" I ignored her, watching as they carried out the dining table I'd bought, the fridge Patricia loved showing off, the washer I'd fixed 100 times. Naomi just stood there, silent, tears streaking her face, but she didn't stop me. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she knew she'd lost the right. The living room emptied fast, the kitchen next, until the house looked gutted, bare walls and dusty floors all that was left. Patricia ran after the movers, shouting, "You're ruining us!" But they didn't care. They had my orders. Brielle started screaming, calling me every name she could think of, but it bounced off me. I felt nothing for them now, just a cold, clear focus. Lucas was mine, and this was my line in the sand. When the truck was loaded, I turned back to Naomi, the divorce papers still in my hand. "Sign," I said, holding them out. She took them, her fingers trembling, and stared at the pages like they'd bite her. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I messed up, I know, but—" I cut her off. "You didn't mess up," I said. "You chose. Months of lies, Naomi. Months while I paid for your life." She flinched, but I kept going. "Sign, or I'll see you in court with those pictures. Your call." She nodded, slow and defeated, and grabbed a pen from the counter. Her signature scratched across the page, shaky but final, and I took it back, folding it into the folder. "We're done," I said and walked out. Patricia followed me to the porch, her voice shrill. "You think you can just take everything and leave us with nothing?" I stopped, turned, and looked at her, really looked at her. "You took everything from me first," I said. "Money, time, my family. You're lucky I'm not suing you for it." Her mouth snapped shut, and for the first time she looked small, defeated, like the fight had finally gone out of her. Brielle stayed inside, her screaming fading to silence, and Naomi didn't come out at all. I got in my truck, the movers pulling away behind me, and drove back to Mike's. My hands were steady now, the fire in my chest burning clean. I'd taken back what was mine, my pride, my future, my son's life. They could scramble now, figure out how to survive without me. I was free, or close to it, and I wasn't looking back. The divorce went through faster than I'd expected, like cutting a rope that had been fraying for years. With Naomi's signature on the papers and those photos from Brielle as my ammo, the judge didn't hesitate. I got full custody of Lucas, and she got nothing. No alimony, no split assets, just the clothes on her back and whatever mess she'd made with that other guy. She tried to fight it at first, showed up to the hearing with red eyes and a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice cracking as she stood there, hands clasped tight. "I'm his mom. He needs me." I didn't look at her, just kept my eyes on the judge, my jaw set. The pictures spoke for me, months of lies, months of her choosing someone else while I raised our son. The gavel came down, and it was over. Lucas was mine, legally, fully, and I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter than I had in years. Patricia and Brielle didn't fare much better. Without my money propping them up, the house slipped away fast. I heard through Mike, who still knew people in their neighborhood, that they couldn't keep up with the rent after I took the furniture and appliances. The landlord gave them a month to pay or get out, and they didn't make it. Last I knew, they'd moved into some rundown apartment across town, Patricia complaining to anyone who'd listen, Brielle bouncing between dead-end jobs. I didn't care enough to check. It was their problem now, not mine. They'd built their whole world on my back, and when I walked away, it crumbled. Good. Let them feel what it's like to stand on their own for once. Lucas and I didn't waste time starting over. I found us a place, a small 2-bedroom house a few miles from Mike's. Nothing fancy but ours. The walls were plain white, the yard was patchy, but it had a big window in the living room where Lucas could watch the world go by. I moved us in with what little I'd kept. My gym gear, his toys, a cheap couch I picked up secondhand. The first night we sat on the floor, eating pizza, boxes still piled around us, and he grinned at me, sauce on his chin. "This is our house, Dada?" he asked, his eyes wide. "Yeah, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "Just you and me." He nodded, like he understood, and I felt it settle in. Freedom, real and solid, for the first time since I'd met Naomi. My fitness business took off like a rocket after that. With the divorce behind me, I threw everything into it. More videos, more posts, new workout plans. Brands started reaching out. Protein shake companies, gym apparel lines, even a sports drink outfit wanting me to rep their stuff. My followers doubled, then tripled, and the money followed. I'd sit at my new kitchen table late at night, Lucas asleep in his room, and watch the orders roll in. Hundreds, then thousands of dollars I didn't have to share with anyone. I bought Lucas a real bed, not some hand-me-down, and fixed up the house. New paint, a swing set in the yard. Clients poured into the gym too, asking for me by name, saying they'd seen my stuff online. I was good at this, damn good, and it was mine to keep. Lucas adjusted fast. He'd ask about Naomi sometimes, his little brow furrowing. "Where's Mommy?" he'd say, holding one of his trucks. I'd crouch down, keep my voice steady. "She's busy, bud," I'd tell him, "but I'm here, always." He'd nod, hug me tight, and run off to play. I didn't badmouth her, I wouldn't do that to him, but I didn't sugarcoat it either. She'd made her choice, and I was his dad, his rock. We built our routine, mornings at preschool, afternoons at the park or the gym with me, nights reading stories on the couch. He was happy, laughing more than he ever had in that old house, and that was enough. One day, months later, my phone buzzed while I was cooking dinner, spaghetti, Lucas's favorite. It was Naomi, a text, "I miss you and Lucas. Can we talk?" I stood there, the pot steaming behind me, and read it again. Miss us? After everything, the affair, the eviction, the silence. My thumb hovered over the reply button, part of me wanting to hear her out, to see if she'd changed. But then I remembered the bar photos, her hand in his, the way she'd let Patricia throw us out. I'd given her years, and she'd given me lies. I didn't owe her anything now, not my time, not my forgiveness. I blocked her number, deleted the message, and turned back to the stove. Lucas ran in, tugging at my leg. "Is it ready, Dada?" he asked, grinning. "Almost," I said, scooping him up. You hungry? He nodded, and I laughed, the sound real and free. That night, after he was in bed, I sat on the porch with a beer, the air cool and quiet. The stars were out, sharp against the dark, and I thought about how far we'd come. I'd lost a wife, a home, years of my life, but I'd gained something better. Lucas slept safe inside. My business was booming, and I didn't answer to anyone. Patricia and Brielle were gone. Naomi was a ghost I'd let go. I was standing tall. I'd rebuilt from nothing, brick by brick, and it felt good, damn good. I took a sip, leaned back, and let the night settle around me. This was my freedom, mine and Lucas's, and no one could take it away. We were done looking back, only forward now, to whatever came next. And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't wait to see it.